honestly, for me, I find them so attractive. Like, wow, I look so good. I look so good. Hi guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to episode 5 of this myth busting series. Today we're covering all things to do with hip dips, and I did make a video about this about maybe 2 years ago, and I'd like to refresh and add some extra information on the same topic. The myth is that you can exercise to get rid of hip dips, that you can exercise to widen your hips, broaden your hips, but in reality that cannot happen. All those videos you see on YouTube are clickbait, because truly you cannot exercise to widen your hips. That comes down to your skeletal structure, your bone structure. I mean, if that were true, we'd probably see people working out to get taller or to reduce the length of their arms, you know. You cannot exercise to widen your hips. And it came to my attention that so many people are not even aware of what hip dips are until it has been slammed on their faces by social media. From what majority of people would say, they really had no idea there was such a thing called hip dips until it was brought to their attention, and that apparently it is something bad and something which they should not like about their bodies. But I'm here to tell you that please, you cannot live and die by societal beauty standards of what the ideal body type should look like, because that is ever changing. And if there's one thing you're not gonna do with your precious time on earth, is to keep up with those changes. We all cannot look the same, and that is okay, you know. So what exactly are hip dips? Hip dips are this slight depression on the side of the hip, specifically and most commonly found in women. As I mentioned earlier, whether you have hip dips or not usually comes down to your skeletal bone structure, how the bones are set up within your pelvis region. So let's jump into a quick anatomy lesson. Whether you have hip dips or not depends on the distance between your ilium and your hip socket. If the distance between the two bone structures is pretty long, then that could mean that you could have an even larger depression with an even larger appearance of hip dips. If the distance between the ilium and the hip socket is shorter, however, then you won't have as pronounced hip dips. That distance in itself is determined by your genetics. It's not something that is caused by exercising too much or losing too much weight or sitting down a lot. None of that. It's purely just how you are born and how your genetics are set up. And if you ask me, I don't see any problem with that. There is nothing wrong with having hip dips. I do have hip dips. I do have wide hips. I still have hip dips. Do I care? No. No, this is my body. It's something which is very natural. It happens, and you know, there's nothing to be insecure about. Here are my hips, and I'm still living and thriving. The main problem with this topic of hip dips and exercising to get rid of hip dips is that it brews a lot of body dysmorphia. The people who've legit developed BDD, which is body dysphoric disorder, just from this heightened insecurity around this topic of hip dips, and oh, you shouldn't have hip dips and your body should look like this and that. And I truly believe that this culture has been pretty much fueled by, you know, the comparisons we have of our natural bodies to those which are surgically altered or even photoshopped on Instagram. I'm aware there are women with natural bodies who have round and plump hips. However, that's a very rare occurrence coming from a person who has wide hips, okay? Most people tend to achieve that look through surgical enhancement. You either get implants or fillers around the hips, and that's gonna give you that extreme hourglass figure. We've heard of procedures like the Brazilian butt lift, which is the BBL. People also go in to get their laterals done. I think that's how it's called. and that can enhance the appearance or the, you know, the shapeliness of your hips. However, remember, not everyone can afford such surgeries, and at the end of the day, those surgical procedures don't address the mental health issue here, which is body dysphoric disorder. This whole conversation on hip dips has also pretty much failed a couple of exercise disorders like muscle dysphoric disorder or bigorexia. I covered it in this video. You can go ahead and watch it. But typically this feeling that you are not big enough, you are not muscular enough, you're training the muscle and it's not responding well enough, so you keep on going in and in to a point whereby people end up abusing anabolic steroids in order to force their muscles to achieve this very animated, cartoonish, you know, buff and realistically buff look. And you don't want to get there. I don't want you to get there. I really don't. Like, is it really worth it? Is it? So what exactly can be done in order to sort of improve the hip dip area region? Number one, it comes down to training the muscle tissue around that area, which in this case is your abductors and part of your glutes. However, training the muscles in that area doesn't necessarily mean that they're gonna grow expansively by 5 to 10 inches. It's just gonna give them a firmer, more defined look within that region. It's not going to expand outwardly. If anything, when you train, you actually get tighter and firmer, almost a bit smaller, but it's not gonna give you any drastic bombastic changes. That can happen with bigger muscles like your glutes. Actually, your glutes are the biggest muscle in your body, and your quadriceps and your hamstrings, they can grow outwardly because they are stacking up on the thickness and the mass. But the hip region, the abductors, not so much. They'll just appear more firm and they'll be a lot more stronger. The second option is adjusting your body fat percentage, aka either gaining weight or losing weight. There are ladies who have seen that their hip dips are a lot more prominent when they lose weight. There are other ladies who've seen that they are a lot more prominent when they gain weight. So you could probably experiment here and there with your training routine, get to lift some weights, get some quality cardio in, and get to settle in that sweet spot where you feel you're most comfortable. And the last option is getting your hips surgically enhanced, which to me, I'm not telling you that you book your appointment with Dr. Miami. No, I'm not saying that, but it is one of the options if we're being very, very realistic, because you can't exercise to broaden your hips. You can't exercise to widen your hips. You can't exercise to get rid of hip dips. You can't. So it comes down to some surgical intervention at the end of the day. But you have to really sit down with yourself and weigh in the consequences. Like, is this really worth it? Is this truly worth it? Are you truly gonna keep up with the societal beauty standards? Are you gonna do that, really? And are you also gonna follow through and address the main issue here, which is BDD, body dysmorphia, you know? Things to consider. All in all, guys, there is absolutely nothing wrong with hip dips. There's nothing wrong. Imagine there's really nothing wrong with having hip dips at all. If anything, honestly, for me, I find them so attractive. Like, wow, I look so good. I look so good. And I want you to feel the same way. Honestly, flaunt it. At the end of the day, we cannot all look the same. There's nothing wrong with having hip dips. It's all part of having a natural body. It's all part of your natural anatomy. So please, show up and keep killing it, please. Wear that bikini, wear those tights, wear those jeans, wear that mini skirt. Show off your body. Like, literally, this is the youngest you'll ever be. Ever. So please show up and show out. Other than that, you really need to improve your relationship with your body. If you are a person who is actively struggling with body dysmorphia, seeking help from a psychiatrist or a therapist will really go a long way in resolving those issues, because remember, your mindset really matters a lot, and as your body is constantly changing, your mind has to change along with it. Your perception of your body also has to change alongside with it. Remember that, okay? Remember that you only have this body. You need to honor it, you need to celebrate it, you need to work it. You also need to improve your relationship with exercising and fitness, because some things are outright just unattainable. You really can't exercise to widen your hips. You can't exercise to get taller. Some things really cannot be changed through exercising, and that is okay. You really need to analyze your goals. You really need to go back to the drawing board and see why exactly you're doing what you're doing. Is it because you're really folding to the societal beauty standards? And if so, why? Do you really have to follow those trends? You know, those are the things you need to sit down and ask yourself, because at the end of the day, honestly, it's never that serious. We're in 2022. Who knows what's gonna be in by 2025, 2030? You know, you can't keep on morphing into these expectations and standards. You gotta do you. You gotta stand proud in what your body is presenting to. And then lastly, you need to start training for things which go beyond your aesthetics. I always say this: working out is not only about, you know, getting that banging body. And trust me, there is nothing wrong if that is your sole purpose, that you want to work out in order to look hot. I get it, but it can't be your only purpose and your only reason to exercise. If you find that you're so obsessive about working out in order to look a certain type of way, it's probably time to look into other, you know, other reasons why you could probably be working out. That could be because of improved health, improved functionality. Personally, me, at this point in my fitness journey, I'm working out because of my strength, as in I love strength training. I love weightlifting. Yes, the physical benefits and the perks and the aesthetics will come afterwards, but what matters to me the most is training for my health, for my strength. You guys know I love a good deadlift. I love a good squat, you know? So look into training more for your functionality. The aesthetics will always be there, trust me. And just understanding that your body is constantly ever changing. It's ever changing. You're always gonna gain weight, always gonna lose weight. Probably just maintain it as it is. But what supersedes that and what matters the most is that you are healthy, you are alive, and you are functioning, okay? At the end of the day, no one will care who had 46-inch hips, 30-inch hips, whether they had hip dips or not. Like, for real. So I hope you got the message from this video. There's a lot more that defines you outside of having hip dips or not, okay? So please, let's keep training smart. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I'll see you next week for the next episode. Bye bye.